Hello there, Whip here, and today I'm going to be showing you the Better Bows mod, and this mod adds 4 new bows into Minecraft, as well as a load of new types of arrows, and an item called the Quiver, where you can store all your arrows in, and you can see the little GUI thing up there, or overlay, or whatever you want to call it, with the arrows I've got supplied in it. And you can see they've also got a cool little jumping animation, so I think it just makes sense to start off with the Quiver, since I've got it in my hand and it's needed. And to load the Quiver, let me just go to one with an empty Quiver. You just need to right click it with your hand, and then you can put arrows in by shift and then left clicking, and it will fill up the Quiver with the maximum possible amount of arrows that you can fill in it, and that is 64, 60 in each slot. And you can also use the custom types of arrows and have like 4 different types of arrows in here, and it will just take them in order from the Quiver, and then to get them back you just press V, well this V here, and then you get your arrows back like that. But you're going to need it loaded, otherwise you won't be able to fire any arrows. You don't actually need a Quiver to fire the bows. You can also have the arrows directly in your inventory without a Quiver, but it's just nice to have the Quiver at the top, and it also enables you to do cool things later where you can swap between arrow types on the go without having to open your inventory. But anyway, now I'm going to show you the 3 different types of bows you can make. So the first bow I'm going to show you is the recurve bow, and the crafting of this one's a bit weird because all you need is a slightly damaged normal bow and put it in the crafting table and you'll get yourself a recurve bow. So I suppose you could do this in your 4x4 crafting grid up there. And yeah, it's quite a simple crafting recipe, but once you've crafted the recurve bow, you can use it. And the recurve bow is different to the default bow because it fires the arrows slightly faster, and therefore fires it further, so you don't have to aim as high to get to the same place. And the disadvantage of this is that it takes longer to charge, so you're not going to be able to fire it as fast, so you'd probably be better off using the normal bow if you're doing close quarters combat or something like that. But anyway, just to show you a demonstration of how it differs, if I want to hit the bullseye here, I think I have to aim about there. Yeah, it was close enough, but if I do that with the recurve bow, you can see it's a lot higher because the arrow is firing faster and it travels a lot further in this same amount of time. So bear that in mind, you can actually aim a bit closer to get a bullseye with this one, so if I aim about there, I was close enough, but there you go, so that's the recurve bow. Next up we've got the long bow, and to craft this you're going to need 2 sticks and a string and then a slightly damaged normal bow, and then you get yourself a long bow. And the long bow fires even faster arrows than the recurve bow, but it also takes longer to pull it back. So this one, I only have to aim about there, and boom, it's not even in the centre. So if I aim there, you see, you don't really have to aim much above the red bit at all, because it just fires so fast that it doesn't have time to arc much before it actually hits the target board, or the archery board, whatever you want to call it. So the longbow has the same durability of the default bow, and I forgot to mention the recurve bow has a lot less durability than the normal bow, so bear that in mind, you're not going to be able to get as many uses out of it. But finally, for the new bows, we've got the Yumi. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but the Yumi is a completely different crafting recipe. You're going to need 4 sugar canes, some leather, and 3 string, and then you craft yourself a Yumi. Now the Yumi is pretty much in between the long bow and recurve bow in distance and arrow firing speed, so I need to fire it about there to get on a decent place in the... There you are, you see, and it just fires it like any normal bow would. And it also has the same durability as the default bow. So the Yumi is just a bit in between the longbow and the recurve bow. It just has like a nice variety if you want to pick off mobs from far away. Like that cow over there, I could use the longbow. And boom, he's dead, and that cow through there isn't going to escape either. Oh, he is, because I just hit the tree, but... Oh, I'm failing at this. Come on. There we are, got him, eventually. And you wouldn't be able to do that very easily with the normal bow at all, because you'd have to like figure out the arc to try and hit him. So the final type of bow is called the composite bow, and to craft the composite bow it's like a long crafting recipe. So first off you need to make something called sinew, and to make this you just put rotten flesh in the crafting grid and then you get yourself some sinew. And you're also going to need something called bottled hide glue, and to craft this you're going to have to put rotten flesh on top of a water bowl, and that makes yourself a bottled rotten flesh. And then with this bottled rotten flesh you put this in the furnace and it will give you something called a bottled hide glue like that. And just to show you that it works, you can see once I put it in, there you go, start smelting it into bottled hide glue. And then you can put all these in the crafting grid along with 3 string, a bone, some leather, a stick and the sinew, and there you get yourself a composite bow. And the composite bow is really awesome because it actually fires arrows much faster. Although the crafting recipe is quite complicated, it's not actually that expensive, so you can just fire arrows much faster than the default bow like that. So it's really good for close combat. So I'll just compare it to the default bow like that, and you can see that it takes a lot longer to charge it. So this would be really useful if you're wanting to fight loads of creepers and stop them exploding. And now I'm trying to shoot myself, that's a bit weird. But there we go, so that's all the different types of bow. Now onto the arrows. Actually, there's a few things I want to go over before I actually go on to the different arrow types. So first off, I forgot to mention that arrows now have like a 3D render, and I'm just going to use a fire arrow for this, but I'll get onto that later. And you can see that the arrows, wait a minute, let's just put that fire out, have like a 3D shape to them, so they'll be rendered in 3D instead of just the 2D like sprite kind of thing. And they now look a lot cooler, and I might want to collect, oh it set me on fire, but I might want to collect that before it sets the whole lovely deciduous forest on fire. But that's pretty much for that, all for that. And also, when you have multiple quivers in your inventory, like here, you can swap between them using plus and minus to change between them, or you can go into the options menu, then to controls, and rebind them to whatever keys you like. So I've set them to left and right, which seems logical, and so I can just use that to cycle between the different arrow types on the go without having to open my inventory or anything like that. And it's a nice and simple way of changing between arrows without any fiddling around. So anyway, now I'm going to go through these arrow types one by one, showing you what they do. So you've already had a little glimpse of the fire arrow, and this basically just sets whatever block it lands on fire. So if I fire at this tree, it sets it on fire. But we don't want to do that because we don't want to set this massive beautiful forest on fire, because that would be very laggy and it would be horrible and it would make it really ugly, and we don't want that to happen. But anyway, the next one is the impact explosive arrow, and this one you could probably guess what it's going to do. It's going to explode on impact, and I think I'm going to test it on that target board. So if I fire over there, boom! There's now a massive hole in the centre of the target board, and that was a very good shot. It was right in the middle. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but there you go. That's the impact explosive arrow, and you could spam it at trees and make them explode if you were that bored and wanted to explode trees, but it's probably more effective against mobs. But next up we have the timed explosive arrow, and this one basically just has a delay before it sets off when it lands, so the explosion won't be instant, but the explosion is bigger, so it's like a compromise. Wait a bit longer for a bigger explosion, and I think it's quite worth it. So if I fire it over there, it's going to land, then explode. It's about a 1 second delay, so just as an example, it's just blown up that tree, so very nice. But the next arrow is the ender arrow, and this one basically just fires an ender pearl wherever the arrow lands, so you'll teleport to wherever the arrow lands. So there we go, it's teleported me over here, and a really fast way of travelling. I mean, imagine comboing this with a longbow and firing like a massive distance, like there, and you've suddenly teleported halfway across the map. It's brilliant. Although you have to bear in mind that it's the same as an ender pearl, you will take damage when you land, so don't think it's just a way to avoid the ender pearl damage, you still get the damage. And finally, out of this set of arrows, we've got the torch arrow. Now this one's really neat because it enables you to place multiple torches on the same block, and it will place the torch wherever the arrow lands. So there you can see the torch is actually not in the centre of the block, it's to the bottom left, and if I fire another one at the same block, there you go, there's another torch on the block, and I could keep doing this and get tons of torches, and the torches will stay there even after you've collected the arrows, so you don't have to worry about your torches disappearing if you go anywhere near them. And look how awesome that looks, that block is now really bright, so yeah. Now on to the next lot of arrows. So the next type of arrow in this mod is the drill arrow, and this basically just drills a hole wherever the arrow lands, and it digs anywhere between 4 and 6 blocks when it lands. So I've noticed that in the mod topic it says about 5 blocks, but I've noticed that it's varied between 4 and 6 whenever I've fired it. So just for an example, if I fire it down here, you can see it's going to dig about 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, like that. And if I fire it again, sometimes it'll dig 5 blocks. And it also drops the arrows once you've fired the arrow, and then it gives you back a broken drill arrow. And then to use this broken drill arrow again, you're going to have to put it in your crafting grid along with a flint, and then it will be mended and you can use it again. So you can reuse these arrows, you don't actually lose them, so that's quite useful, I suppose. But next up we've got the potion, well, the splash potion arrows, but I just call them potion arrows because you can put any kind of potion on the end. And to make these, all you're going to need to do is put 2 arrows in the crafting grid along with a potion. Any potion of your choice, it can be anything. So you could have like invisibility potion and then fire at a mob, and then you can make a cow invisible after you've shot it. But just for an example, I've got this arrow with a potion of poison 2 on it. So if I splash this and fire it at myself, there you go, I've got poison 2 on me. And the next one I think is the potion of invisibility arrow. So I've just added an invisibility potion to a arrow, and now I can fire at this sheep here, and it should disappear. Like, well, actually I need to be a bit closer so it doesn't like die from the damage, but let's just do a small little arrow there. It's still alive, you can see the little effects, and I think it's just fallen down that hole, but there you go. I've now made an invisible cow because I've put a potion of invisibility on the end of an arrow. So yeah, that's the cool things you can do with potion arrows, and as I said before, you can do this with any potion in the entire game, so That's quite cool. There's a load of different possibilities of arrows there for you to mess around with. But next up we've got the four splitting arrows, and you can do this to any arrow, any of the potion arrows, any of the explosive arrows, anything. You can 4 split them and have 4 arrows fire out at the same time once you fire the bow. So here I've got a 4 splitting torch arrow, so if I fire at the tree here, it will put down 4 arrows, and I think the best way to show this is just by like spreading them out like that. And another cool thing I noticed about these, the way it renders the arrows, is that if it's dark and you're walking around with this bow drawn with the torch arrows in, it will actually light up as you walk around, which is kind of neat. But there you go, you can see it's fired 4 arrows at once and they've placed down 4 torches. And here's another example. I've just put a 4 splitting impact explosive arrow, so if I fire this at the ground, it's got 4 explosions for the price of 1. It's brilliant. Well, not really for the price of 1, since you have to craft it using different resources, but there you go. So you can, as I mentioned before, you can use these 4 splitting arrows with all the different kinds of arrows, so you can have 4 splitting potions of poison if you really want to. I actually forgot to mention a few key features of this mod which are actually worth noting, and that is that skeletons will sometimes spawn with custom bow types, so you might find a skeleton with a composite bow or something like that rapidly fires arrows at you, and that'd be quite annoying really, because you'd never get anywhere near it. And also, when you actually use up all the durability of one of these custom bows, it's going to turn into an unstringed bow. And then to actually restring these unstringed bows and get it back, you're going to need some string in your inventory. And all you need to do is right click with the unstringed bow, and there you go. It equips the bow and takes 3 string out of your inventory and then restrings it. So it's quite useful if you want to recharge your bow on the go and you've got string in your inventory after just fighting spiders or something like that. So I can see that could be really useful. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next mod video, and I definitely recommend you check this one out.